One of the privileges we have in this country is the right to vote for candidates who support positions and ideas that we hold important, and by doing so, choose those who would govern us. What we're doing tonight is an important part of that process. So thank you to those of you at home for joining us this evening live from the Hamilton Spectator Auditorium for a candidates debate for the Ancaster-Hamilton West-Dundas riding, as 5 men and women try to earn your support. They will get a chance to explain some of their positions. They will try to explain why they don't agree with certain positions, and they will challenge a few others. My name is Scott Radley. I am a columnist at the Hamilton Spectator, and I am the host of the Scott Radley Show on 900 CHML Radio. On stage in front of me this evening are your candidates, from left to right. From the Green Party, Victoria Galley. From the Conservative Party, Bert Laranjo. From the New Democratic Party, Yusuf Malik. From the People's Party, Daniel Riccatone. And from the Liberal Party, Philomena Tassi. Here is how tonight is going to work. Each candidate is going to begin by getting 2 minutes to make an opening statement. I will then be asking them a number of questions, some of which were submitted by readers of The Spectator and viewers of Cable 14. They will have 1 minute to answer those questions. The order of questioning was drawn ahead of time at random. Following that, there will be an open debate, then 1 minute closing statements. The candidates have been told ahead of time that we are going to be strict on time. They have to answer within the time frame. Once their time is up, I will be cutting them off. When we're done tonight, stick around for post-debate analysis on Cable 14. And if you missed part of this, or if you miss any of the other debates, because we'll have all 5 local ridings, cable14now.com, thespec.com, or on Cable 14 right up until the election. You can see replays of these elections. Let us begin tonight with opening statements alphabetically. First from the Green Party, Victoria Galley.
Hello, my name is Victoria Galley, and I'm your Green Party candidate. And I would like to thank you for watching this important all-candidate debate, as well as a big thank you to Cable 14 News and the Hamilton Spectator for facilitating it. This riding is very important to me, as I'm a lifelong resident of the West Mountain part of the constituency, where my family has lived for 5 generations. I would like to take the next few moments to tell you why I am qualified to be your next federal member of Parliament. My Honors Bachelor of Arts degree and Master's in International Relations from McMaster University has provided me with an in-depth look at Canadian politics, Indigenous reconciliation, and our climate crisis. During my time at McMaster, I volunteered for many nonprofits, including Free the Children, the World Wildlife Foundation, while co-creating and leading social justice at MAC. I've hosted and led various litter cleanups from Bayfront Park, from the Bruce Trail, and the Hamilton to Brantford Rail Trail. I previously worked at Tesla, showing me firsthand that we can have a fully functioning society of road trips, Netflix, and hot showers fully functioning on solar power, increasing my interest for the Green Party of Canada. For the last 2 years, I've been the CEO for a local Green Party riding. All of my experience has brought me wanting to make a difference in our federal government. We need a new green economy, a guaranteed livable income, and proportional representation. Let's change the face of politics together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, from the Conservative Party, Bert Laranjo.
Good evening. My name is Bert Laranjo. I'm the Conservative candidate for Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Cable 14 and the Hamilton Spectator for putting together this all-candidates debate, as well as acknowledge my fellow candidates who, even though we may disagree at times with certain opinions, are great candidates. We're all doing this for the right reason, that is to serve our community. We're truly blessed to be living in Canada. What a great country, and what a great community we live in Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas. My family came to Canada when I was only at the age of 9. We came here to try to follow the Canadian dream. When we arrived here in Canada, we realized very quickly that the Canadian dream was a reality. Over the past 4 years, I felt that this Canadian dream has slipped away a little bit from us. As a parent of 2 little girls, I'm concerned for my children if this continues to go the way it's going. Taxes have increased on about 80% of middle-class families, and this is something that makes it really hard for families to make ends meet. I hear this every day at the doors. I've hit about 25,000 doors in this riding, and I hear from my neighbors around my community. As a Canadian Conservative government, we're focused on bringing in the universal tax cut, the green home tax credit, investments in the MRIs and CAT scans. We're looking at how to help seniors by bringing down the seniors' tax cuts, and also making tax credits available for kids' arts and sports, as well as public transit. I'm a nurse, and as a nurse, it is my duty to serve those that come into my department. This is how I plan on serving this community, always being there when you need me. If you choose to have me as your MP, you can always count on me to be there for everything you need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representing the New Democratic Party, Yusuf Malik.
Thank you very much, and thank you to everyone for tuning in today. I'm Yusuf Malik, your NDP candidate from Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas. Throughout this conversation today, I want you to know a little bit more about me, and I am hoping through this conversation you'll know enough to support me on October 21st. Let's talk about why I'm running. I have 4 generations living in my household, from my grandma, who's 85 years young, to my dad, my beautiful wife Sabah, and our 9-month-old son. I see firsthand why we need to invest in people. I know it's getting harder for everyday people to make ends meet. From what I'm hearing at the doors, people are fed up. Fed up of having to pay for prescription medication with their credit cards, not knowing month to month how they're going to pay their bills. Where students are fed up of the rising cost of tuition and their rising debt levels. Where working people are fed up of their not knowing if they're going to get the pensions they rightfully deserve. And where seniors are worried about their retirement. A couple of weeks ago, I met Joanne, who manages a building in West Mountain. Now, she's managed this building for the last 35 years, and after working her entire life, she's in a position where she can't retire. No one in Canada who's worked their entire life should be put in this position. Seniors deserve better, and they are feeling neglected by our current government. That is why we can do better, and we must do better. That is why I'm asking you to support the NDP so we can invest in services we all need. I'm Yusuf Malik, your NDP candidate, and I'm fighting for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Now representing the People's Party of Canada, Daniel Riccatone.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Riccatone, and I'm here tonight representing the People's Party of Canada. Over the past year, the PPC became the fastest growing party in the history of this great nation. Why? Because we've started a common sense revolution. We are at a defining moment in our history. The question before the Canadian people is, as they look at this country, do you feel what's being done is satisfactory? Polls show the overwhelming majority of Canadians do not believe that our current Prime Minister is capable of running an ethical government. In comparison, Conservative supporters see Mr. Scheer subtly sliding left to appease his detractors in order to gain votes. The PPC believes in free speech, common sense, and the rule of law, as well as the security, prosperity, and national sovereignty of Canada. We do not share Mr. Trudeau's sentiment that Canada has no core identity. We reject this message. We will fight for the silent majority of Canadians. We will not capitulate to political correctness. I believe the only way Canadians will win this time is if politics as usual loses. It is my honor and privilege to be here tonight. Thank you.
And finally, representing the Liberal Party, Philomena Tassi.
Thank you, Scott. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, governed by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. I've been honored to serve Hamilton and Canada for the last 4 years as a Member of Parliament for Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas, and for the last year as Minister of Seniors. Together, we've brought much success to the city, with over $500 million in federal investments. These investments have provided support for McMaster University and Mohawk College to build and research, taken the advanced manufacturing sector to the next level, enabled social justice organizations like Empowerment Squared and the Hamilton Centre for Civic Inclusion to build on their great work, and empower innovative startups like those at Hamilton Forge. We have invested heavily in infrastructure with a focus on green, social, and public transit investments. We introduced the Canada Child Benefit, which helped 18,000 children in this riding and 10,000 families. We've invested in our cultural spaces with a significant $2.6 million investment for Ancaster Arts Centre. Today, October 1st, is National Seniors Day. Seniors have been a strong focus of our government. We've strengthened the retirement security, and in so doing, either prevented or lifted over 150,000 seniors out of poverty. If seniors are entitled to benefits, we want them to receive those benefits. This is why we implemented automatic enrollment for the Guaranteed Income Supplement and for the Canada Pension Plan when seniors turn 70. Our government has made a commitment to the environment, including put a price on pollution, making unprecedented investments in green infrastructure and technology. We also introduced a single-use plastic ban and an oceans protection plan. We know there's more work to do to fight climate change and make Hamilton and Canada an even better place to live and work. I'm committed to work hard and to serve my community and my country.
Thank you very much to all of you. We will now go to questions. A reminder, you'll have 1 minute to answer the question. I'll give you a 10-second warning, and then we will stop. We're going to start. We drew randomly before the debate today, and coming in first, earning the first opportunity, will be Bert Laranjo from the Conservative Party. Andrew Scheer says it'll take him 5 years to balance the budget, but it seems impossible to many people to do that without cutting, and implausible to say otherwise. So what is going to be cut?
So the reality is we are not going to cut anything. What we have made announcements to enhance services. What we're doing is working hard to making sure that we help Canadians keep more of their money, because we know if they keep more of their money, they're able to reinvest in their local communities, helping the small businesses bloom, and it becomes a cyclic cycle where then, in the end, people will pay for their taxes. We also know that we have an ability to advance our energy corridor, which will generate a lot of revenue for Canada. We are looking to enhance services like the health transfers and the social transfers. We made that very clear, as well as bring in medical equipment to communities who need that equipment. So we're very focused on growing, and under Andrew Scheer, I'm confident we're going to do that.
Thank you very much. Second today, Daniel Riccatoni from the People's Party. Your leader, Maxime Bernier, says he'll balance the books in 2 years. That sounds even more fantastical to many people, especially when he says he can do this without cuts to service. How could this possibly be done?
Well, I'll start by saying 4 years ago, Mr. Trudeau inherited a balanced budget, and 4 years later, we are billions in debt with interest at $26 billion. This country is bleeding money, and there is no end in sight, and the budget did not balance itself, as he claimed. The PPC plans to balance the budget, as you've said, in 2 years. We will completely abolish corporate welfare, saving $5 billion. We are not going to waste $1.5 billion a year funding the CBC when they receive private sector ads, just like their competitors. We also will not give $2.3 billion in foreign aid to corrupt dictatorships overseas to battle climate change, because I doubt they are using that money for what we're giving it to them for. Nor will we give communist China money to develop their pipelines. With a balanced budget, we're going to introduce a simplified two-tiered tax system. Anyone making $100,000 will only have to pay 15% tax, and we will also completely abolish capital gains tax and home gains tax, as well as reduce the farm tax to 10%, and we will not impose a federal carbon tax.
Thank you. Philomena Tassi from the Liberal Party. During the last election, your government vowed to limit deficits to $10 billion. We all know you've massively exceeded that number. Your government promised to balance the books by 2019. That's not going to happen. And a University of Ottawa report from earlier this year said, and this is a quote, "As public debt increases, more resources will be directed toward interest payments and away from public spending that improves the daily lives of Canadian households." So we're now spending over $25 billion a year in this country just servicing the interest on our debts, money that isn't available to be spent on programs to help people. Are you comfortable seeing that number go even higher?
Scott, our program is working. Our plan is working. And we made a commitment to invest in Canadians. We said that in 2015, and we're saying the same thing again today. And those investments are working. If you look at the debt to GDP ratio, we have the strongest debt to GDP ratio in the G7 countries. The Canadians have created, with the jobs, with the investments that we have made, Canadians have created over 1 million jobs in the past 4 years. We have the lowest unemployment rate in decades. And all of that taking place while lifting 900,000 Canadians out of poverty. Canada has a AAA rating. Germany is the only other G7 country with that rating. And these investments are working. And we believe in Canadians, and we want to invest in Canadians, and our investments are driving the economy and economic growth.
From the Green Party, Victoria Galley. Elizabeth May says that your party will offer free university tuition and forgive any outstanding student debt. Now, I want to talk about the second part. My daughter is currently finishing her nursing degree at McMaster, and anyone who is taking that course knows how onerous it is. It requires hours of studying, working internships, doing all kinds of other stuff. Yet to make sure that she was not saddled with all kinds of debt when she finished university, she has simultaneously worked 3 jobs as she's done this. She's not alone. Others have done this too. So is she and are they fools for having paid their university debts rather than simply waiting for the government to come along and pay it for them?
Thank you. I would say absolutely not. I'm also one of the people that worked full-time during my entire time, both for my undergrad in Bachelor of Arts in Political Science at McMaster and my Master's in International Relations. And I think that we need to want better for our future generations. And we see that other countries go up in GDP and have a happier economy when we have free post-secondary education. The other thing is that $27,000 is how much annual debt the average student in Canada goes into. That's unacceptable. We must have free post-secondary education because during my time at McMaster, I saw firsthand students dropping out of school, not because they couldn't handle the workload, but because they couldn't afford it. And we do not believe that finance should be a barrier to opportunity and that everyone should have an equal chance at an education.
Yusuf Malik from the NDP. The NDP has not committed to balancing the books in the country anytime soon, and I want to go back to what I asked Ms. Tassi about. That $25 billion plus that we spend on servicing our debt alone could cover the entirety of your national pharmacare and dental care programs if we had that money. Would we not be better served balancing our books and cutting our debt so that money could go to helping ordinary Canadians?
That question. As the NDP, we're committed to making sure we make investment in people. We see what happens when governments do reckless cuts. We can see them right here in Ontario. That's why, as an NDP government, we're committed to making sure we're investing in people. Because people are the drivers of our economy, and that's the way how we're going to be able to grow our economy and ultimately balance the budget. Where we are strict is making sure everyone pays their fair share. Right now, we have large corporations and with extremely wealthy, who are through tax loopholes, are able to, essentially pay very little tax at the end of the day. That needs to stop. We need to make sure everyone is paying their fair share so that we can invest in services that we all need, like healthcare and education. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to Bert Laranjo from the Conservative Party. There are still many questions in this community about the LRT that would go through Westdale and service McMaster University and residents in your riding. If the cost to construct this project were to go above the $1 billion promised by the provincial government, which many expect, would you fight for federal funds to pay for this project?
Well, our party is very focused on infrastructure. It's something that we know that gridlock is a huge issue here in Hamilton. So if the province and the city were to approach me, it would be my job as the MP to make sure we advocate for our community and that I would bring forward and we'd look at how we better the infrastructure to decrease the gridlock here in Hamilton.
Daniel Riccatoni with the People's Party. Your party's position is that there is no climate crisis. Maxime Bernier has called it alarmism. What if you're wrong?
Well, I would like to give a little history lesson and say to date, no apocalyptic climate predictions with due dates have yet to come true. In 1969, the New York Times claimed there would be an ice age by the year 2000, and that is global cooling, mind you. In 2009, Prince Charles stated we have just 96 months to save the environment. Well, 2017 came and went, and needless to say, we're still here. In fact, in 2017, the United States led all countries in reducing carbon emissions. This was confirmed by Forbes magazine. This was accomplished without a carbon tax or the Paris Climate Agreement. In May 2018, the Toronto Star wrote, "Carbon taxes do not curb emissions nor help battle climate change." They were correct. The carbon tax is an inefficient half measure used to take your money Australia scrapped its carbon tax because it crippled businesses. The PPC will not impose a federal carbon tax, nor cap and trade like the Conservatives are proposing. We will delegate these matters to the provincial level. If you want a carbon tax, vote for a premier that supports it. If you don't want one, then don't.
Philomena Tassi from the Liberal Party. You were a chaplain at Bishop Tona Secondary before the last election. You described yourself then as pro-life, yet you work for a party that has demanded its members be pro-choice. And if you are willing to give in on an issue as significant as that one, what is the moral or conscience line you'd be unwilling to cross even if the party demanded it?
Scott, I made it clear in 2015, and I make it clear now. I support a woman's right to choose.
Victoria Galley. Your party wants to establish a national pharmacare plan. So why propose eliminating all private coverage for a national public plan instead of simply filling the gaps for those of low income or who have no coverage, which the Canadian Health Policy Institute says would be a much less expensive option?
The problem with simply filling the gaps is that people are always going to get missed, and there's a question of where's that cutoff and where's the security. So let's say I get a job in the next year where I have great benefits, but as a precarious worker, I all of a sudden lose that and I fall between the cracks and now I have no coverage. We want to ensure that everyone has coverage, and by having this platform of universal pharmacare, we are really able to support every Canadian, and pharmacare is healthcare. We need to support everyone in all aspects of their healthcare. We can't simply send someone to the hospital, they get their prescription, and then they're unable to fill that because they don't have the financial ability to. By wholesaling and purchasing from the government and then discounting those prices, it makes it cheaper for everyone by a significant cost, and that is why we put this plan into action.
Yusuf Malik from the NDP. Your platform calls for a significant expansion of public transit, more routes, better service in rural areas, and eventually fare-free rides on public transit. Does that mean, as I asked Mr. Lorenzo before, if the LRT in Hamilton comes in over budget as many expect, you would be fighting for the NDP to cover the costs of those overruns?
As the NDP, we're committed to making sure we make investment in public transit. And anyone who's taken the HSR in Hamilton knows how flawed our current system is. Having taken the bus back to and from school over the years, I know that there are gaps, and we need to fill those gaps. And we see those gaps as we're moving from Hamilton to commuting to different areas, and we see the gridlock on our highway system. That is where we need to make investment and make sure that we're doing so at a responsible manner. As the NDP government, we absolutely support transit, and we absolutely support the fact that we need to make investment and real investment in transit so we can tackle climate change and we can improve our economy at the same time. Because right now it's costing us money, and money that frankly we shouldn't be losing because of gridlock and other governments, our previous governments' lack of investments in public transit.
Thank you very much to all of you for answering those questions. We're now going to move to the open debate portion of the evening. Because we're following the same number system, we are starting with Bert Lorenzo from the Conservative Party. His option is to ask any other candidate any other question, and then the floor is open for anyone else to jump in and discuss this. Mr. Lorenzo.
My question is for Ms. Tassi. So in 2015, your party promised that the budgets would be balanced by 2019. Well, here we are, 2019, nowhere close to having it balanced. Your platform has come out, and according to what you've said it's going to cost, $27.5 billion we're adding to that. Can you let Canadians know how your party plans on balancing the budget and when?
So thanks, Bert, for that question. Essentially, I've answered that previously. Our government is taking a position where we believe in investing in Canadians. And that is, in fact, that will have a positive result in terms of our economic strength and economic growth. The plan over the past 4 years that we have implemented has proven that. When you look at the number of jobs that have been created by Canadians as a result of our belief and trust in them, 1 million jobs created. As I said, we have the strongest debt to GDP ratio in the G7 countries. So yes, we are committed to investing, and we are going to continue to invest in Canadians because the GDP is increasing. We are doing well. Canadians are producing. They are answering the call. Our investments are worthy investments. And while doing that, lowest unemployment rate in decades, strongest GDP growth, AAA rating that we have, we've lifted 900,000 Canadians out of poverty.
I would like to jump in if you would let me. On the record of our government, specifically when it comes to employment, we see that there are a lot of people struggling. We are in an area or a period in time where everyone should be thriving, given the record low unemployment rates that the Liberals like to tell us about. But we see that people are struggling in our communities, and they're struggling because of the fact that a lot of the jobs that have been created are precarious, that are part-time, that don't have the benefits anymore, like the jobs back in the day used to. And that's where we need a government that's actually focused on people and making sure we make when we are talking about making investments in people, we're talking about making investments in actual people and not giving large corporations tax breaks and profiteering off of students' loans. Last year, federal government made $3 billion off of student debt. Can you imagine $3 billion off a student? And while giving $6 billion in tax breaks and buying a pipeline, that's not where our money should be going, and we should be investing in families and in people, and that's exactly where the NDP comes in, and that's exactly what we believe in, and that's why I'm fighting for you.
Investing in workers and Canadians is the most important thing, not investing in pipelines and subsidies for fossil fuel corporations. This must end, and as well as closing the loopholes that the NDP was just discussing. That is working towards a balanced budget, which is also something that the Green Party would like to achieve in the next 5 years as well.
I also am concerned about the validity of some of these claims. I think it's clever wording, especially considering what you've said, it is mostly part-time jobs, as well as you are a minister of seniors, and you've claimed often that you've lifted 57,000 out of poverty. Now, newspapers across the country reported that these seniors only moved above the poverty line when you and the Liberal government decided to lower the poverty line. And if this is true, then your claim is intellectually dishonest. So now I want to give you the benefit of the doubt. My question is to you. Did you mislead Canadians by moving the goalposts when it comes to seniors in poverty?
It was very good that Minister Duclos chose an actual level of poverty, and that was the market basket measure. That's a very important measure because it's a basket of goods. So it takes into consideration where you are living and measures poverty in accordance with the cost of goods in the area in which you live. Look, is there more to do in terms of what my colleagues are saying? Is there more to do? Absolutely. That's why we've committed to a poverty reduction strategy. By 2030, we're going to increase poverty by a further 50%. But look at what our record is. Middle class tax cut. 9 million Canadians are paying less taxes as a result of that. Canada Child Benefit, a tax-free benefit that is income tested. Stop sending the checks to millionaires, giving it to families who need it most. That has lifted 300,000 children out of poverty. These investments are working, and they're making a real difference in the lives of Canadians. The National Housing Strategy, the first ever federal investment of $55 billion, which includes a co-investment fund, which addresses vulnerable populations, like seniors, like those that are disabled, like women escaping
Ms. Tassi, I would like
violence.
to point out
and
the fact that
those investments are happening in Hamilton.
National Housing Strategy,
YWCA
most of the
got $10
investments
million
will not start
under
till
that
after,
fund. Look at Indwell House
over a 10-year
with
period,
the Baptist
after your
Church.
election.
They also creating affordable, safe, secure houses for those with disabilities.
Ms. Tassi, as your claim that, under your government and under your leadership, we've seen our government invest less in housing by 19% as a percentage of GDP than under Harper days. As a national housing strategy, we need a government that's more bold than to be able to taking a step back and reducing the level of funding that's provided. I work in social housing policy, and I know that people are struggling. Our wait lists are growing, whether it's families or seniors. They are not able to find housing, and what's happening across the board is not right. That is why NDP has a real plan to make investment and create 500,000 homes across Canada, homes that we need for affordable housing and across all the spectrum. Working with municipalities as well as cooperative housing, we know we can get this done, and that's what a real investment in people looks like.
Let me jump in here. Thank you very much. Mr. Riccatoni, it is your turn to have a question if you have a question for another one of the candidates.
That actually was my question on...
You can pass if you wish.
I will pass for now.
Okay. Ms. Tassi, your turn.
Thanks, Scott. I'd like to ask Bert Laranjo a question. Today's National Seniors Day, and income security has been very important to seniors. One of the measures that we implemented almost immediately as government was to change what the Conservative government did before us under Harper. And that was, he increased the age of eligibility for receiving your OAS, your Old Age Security, and your Guaranteed Income Supplement from 65 to 67. And so we reversed that and we have brought it back down to 65. In addition to that, your leader is indicating that he may change the improvements we made for the Canada Pension Plan, which will offer a 50% increase in pension benefits to retirees of the future. So my question is, if the Conservative government is in office, would they commit to not rolling back the OAS and the GIS for seniors from increasing it again, taking away what we have done, so increasing it from 65 to 67, and would they keep the historic agreements we made on the Canada Pension Plan intact so retirees can have more income security when they retire?
So I can't speak for what happened in the previous government because I wasn't part of that. I know under Andrew Scheer, everything that we're doing is focused on making sure that seniors on fixed income are able to live independent lives and keep most of their money. We know things as simple as we take for granted as heating in the home. Well, that's an essential service where the HST is put on that. So we're going to take the GST portion off of that to help them make more affordable. We've offered some seniors tax cuts to it, where we're really focused on making sure that seniors get to keep more of their money. We're working ahead to ensure that we improve the livelihood of seniors and that make sure that seniors feel independent and they're able to enjoy their retirement savings, and if they don't have it, that the government is there to help them to at least enjoy the freedom of retirement.
Not only do we need to actually change the target income replacement rate for CPP from 25% to 50%, but we also need a guaranteed livable income. As we previously talked about the fluctuation of which politician of the day decides you are or aren't in poverty, or whether or not you are a senior, of which age can you qualify for certain things, we need a guaranteed livable income to ensure that every single Canadian is lifted out of poverty, not just seniors, not just certain communities, but that no one in Canada lives in poverty.
Are you talking about a universal basic income?
Guaranteed livable income that qualifies for all
And how would
people.
we afford that?
By not only closing the tax loopholes, but also taxing corporations that have never paid taxes in their life. You previously discussed wanting to end corporate welfare.
Absolutely.
So why should our corporations of Amazon, Facebook, and Netflix not pay their fair share? I know when I get my paycheck, I pay my fair share to taxes, and so should these corporations.
But you understand the fundamental difference that by abolishing corporate handouts, we're not going to be giving taxpayer dollars to corporations. What you're talking about is making the corporations pay for our universal basic income. So what happens, because this will inevitably happen, what happens when you drive all the businesses offshore?
It's not, these businesses already don't have their head offices in Canada. Most of them are based in the U.S., so they already, it's an e-commerce, they're on the internet. It doesn't matter where they're based. It matters that they're still operating in
Of course it matters where they're
Canada.
based. You're talking about taxing them here. What
Yes,
you're
because
saying,
if they're operating here, they still need, they're operating via the internet.
and you're
so they're
telling
still
them to pay for
functioning
our
here.
living.
I believe that everyone
They
believes
will leave.
that fair share of their payment of the percentage of their corporation tax should go towards a livable income, as well as getting rid of subsidies for fossil fuel corporations and ending tax loopholes and safe havens for corporations that already should be paying their fair share in taxes and do not.
I'd just like to add, Victoria, to what you have said with respect to the basic guaranteed income. It's just unfortunate that the provincial government cut that program here in Hamilton. I know that that had devastating consequences on the recipients. They advocated strong and hard to have that reversed because they were doing well under that program. It would have been nice to have that data, to have that evidence, and to have that program continue so that we can take a look at that evidence to determine whether it's something we should be considering as we move forward.
Speaking of not helping our, local citizens and government not working for Canadians, I would like to ask Ms. Tassi a question. Being a Minister of Seniors...
Hold just 1 second. It's Victoria's turn, so we'll go
Sorry.
to Victoria first.
Sorry.
You have a question, Victoria, and then we will get to Yusuf.
Thank you so much. My question is also directed for Ms. Tassi here. The Green Party is the only party with sustainable climate action. The Liberals ran on the platform that Harper's reduction in emission targets were not enough. Yet you adopted those exact same targets. You knew that this was wrong, yet you continue to do it anyway. How do you defend the Liberal record of nationalizing a pipeline and its expansion, missed emission targets, and continuing giving tax breaks and subsidies to fossil fuel corporations throughout the last 4 years?
So let's take a look at our government's record. First, we put a price on pollution. It's no longer free to pollute in Canada. $5,000 for electric vehicles, rebates. An ocean protection plan, $1.5 billion. $8.9 million for the Great Lakes project. We banned single-use plastics, and we're making historic investments in infrastructure, green, transit, and social. We only have to look locally to see the benefits of those investments. So Mohawk College has built the first net zero institutional building in the region. And yes, emissions are reduced, and yes, costs are saved, but it is also a living lab for the students there to come up with more evidence and more research and find better, greener ways at approaching this. In terms of moving forward, there's a number of things, but my time I know is going to be limited. I'm going to be cut off. So I will just mention a couple. $40,000 we're giving to homeowners for interest-free loans to retrofit their homes. We are planting 2 billion trees, and I think this is really important. The Guardian in July had an article.
Time.
Your price on pollution
Again, I'd like to jump in there and say
rid-
that I believe Ms. Tassi and the Liberals are being intellectually dishonest, that Trudeau is charging $50 a ton when $300 a ton will be needed in order to achieve the Paris Climate Agreement. Even Elizabeth May will tell you that. So again, you're being intellectually dishonest. Now, I'm not going to be backing a carbon tax. I've already given you my reasons as to why not. But again, I believe that that is being intellectually dishonest because you're saying we're going to achieve these goals, as is Mr. Scheer, and they will not.
Exactly. This price on pollution already exempts most fossil fuel corporations. They don't pay this pollution you speak of. Also, your ban on single-use plastics was implemented extremely recently. It's administrated after the election in 2021. We had 4 years to make this change. This is what your party ran on, and all buildings need to be net zero if we want to hit our targets of reducing 60% by 2030, and the Green Party is the only party that will do that, and that is something we need to do in the face of this emergency.
So in addition to that, we are giving a net zero new home grant of $5,000, but I want to get back to this, the impacts of the measures that we are taking. We have made historic investments in infrastructure, in transit, in green innovation, and the article in The Guardian in July said that worldwide planting can remove 2/3 of the world's carbon emissions. Scientists are saying this research is mind-boggling. We have measures in place that are making a real difference. Our targets are achievable. Is there more work to do? Absolutely. Are we committing to do that?
But countries
We
with half the
absolutely
size
are.
and half the GDP have pledged higher reforestation targets and reached those in single days than the Liberal government has in 4 years. We can do better, and your party ran on this and did not do that. It's unacceptable.
As a father, I'm concerned about what's happening with climate change, and I want my son to be able to grow up in Hamilton that I love and grew up in. And that's why I don't believe Liberals' promises when they say that they will be doing things, because most of the things, they had 4 years to do so, and most of the things that they're promising right now are election time promises. We can think of a few other promises, like pharmacare, that didn't make the cut.
As a person, this is my biggest concern in the election. This is the single reason I am running. I don't have children yet. I'm a millennial. We're discussing whether it's even ethical to have children in a planet we know cannot be sustained. The Green Party is the only option to hit those emission targets of 60% by 2030 while also balancing the budget. It's something that we can do, and we need to do it.
I'd like to jump in there for a second, because this is one of my favorite doublespeaks of the progressive left, where they say that we need to stop having children in order to battle climate change, but also at the same time we need to bring in more immigration because we're not having enough kids. So which one is it?
See, the great
Please take your
thing
pick.
about the Green Party platform is that moving to a green new economy and creating renewable energy, we will actually create more jobs than available working Canadians. As a Canadian, we have an obligation to climate refugees to help them. We have been one of the huge creators of our climate crisis. By allowing a move to a green new economy, we can have this influx in mass waves of immigration that we will see from our climate refugees.
Speaking of economy and our climate, it is clear that both economy and the environment go hand in hand. And that is why NDP's plan is to make real investment in green infrastructure to be able to create good jobs as well as tackle our climate change crisis. Our plan is estimated to commit and build 300,000 good jobs for people across Canada. These are jobs that will be created from energy retrofits to large apartment buildings. I know particularly in Hamilton this is a concern because a lot of the buildings, one of the buildings that I lived in previously is over 30 years old. A lot of them are single pane windows, don't have high efficiency furnaces or any of the things we need. And that's where the NDP plan comes into play, to making sure we have real investment in homes for large apartment buildings, as well as giving homeowners the opportunity to upgrade their homes as well.
While also supporting the LNG and oil fracking and not ending pipelines.
Let me jump in here.
Well, now that we've sorry.
You're going to get an opportunity now. You're waiting. Yusuf Malik, it is your turn. You can go there if that's your question, or you can move on to another topic with your question.
Thank you. I'll just mention very briefly, when it comes to the topic of pipeline, we are very clear in the criteria that we have. Number one, is it consistent with our climate change goals? Number two, is it helping our Canadian economy and is it needed? And number three, is it consistent with our values of treating Indigenous people with respect and dignity that they deserve? And if a pipeline manages to hit those as we will be in support. And unfortunately, right now, that's not the case. As for my question, I would like to ask Ms. Tassi, as a minister for seniors, I've been going door to door and hearing how seniors are struggling. I see firsthand with my grandma how seniors are being left behind. When it comes to protecting pensions and making sure people have what they need to retire, and why is it that your party and you yourself did not support my colleague Scott Duval from the NDP, who put forward a bill to do exactly that, to put workers' rights, workers first in terms of bankruptcy, to be able to safeguard people's livelihoods? Because it's not just about creating jobs, it's people's livelihoods that are at stake, and that's why I'm asking this question.
So I'm very happy that you've asked that question. I am the daughter of a proud steelworker, and I recognize the importance of pensions and ensuring that pensions are safe and secure. And I have been working extremely hard with my colleagues on this file. But I want to talk about your colleague's bill. So this is a bill that is super priority. That's what the bill is. And there's unintended consequences with that bill. So this is a decades-old problem. No government wanted to address this problem because it's complex and it's complicated. So what we did this past year is held consultations. As a result of those consultations, over 4,000 submissions, in Budget 2019, we implemented measures to better protect pensioners. That includes giving the court the authority to set aside executive bonuses when pensioners' pensions get stripped.
But your government didn't support...
I'm not finished yet. I want to be able to have time to answer the question. As well as ensuring that, that when people come to the court, they're honest and open about their real interests. And for federally incorporated companies to ensure that they have the ability to look at the consequences on workers and on pensioners. The unintended consequences are evident in the Stelco example. Stelco would be finished if your member's bill was in place. They would have folded. There was an $800 million unfunded liability. That would have been the end of Stelco. Those pensioners would have taken a major pension cut and would have lost their jobs.
Tassi, you've had your chance now. Let me rebut, please. When it comes to pensions and when it comes to these are wages, these are deferred wages that people have worked hard for. These are workers' money. They're not a banker's money or a shareholder's money. Why do we continue to support corporations that continue to give, the highest dividends to their shareholders and give the top dollars to their executives in bonuses, while they keep underfunding their pension systems or the workers' pensions? And that's what the problem is, a government that's not supporting workers and not putting them first. That's the reason why the local steelworkers union has endorsed me as well as all the other NDP candidates, because that's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for workers and workers' rights to make sure they come first, because it's not a matter of the excuses around jobs, or it's not a matter of consultations. It's a matter of principle. If someone's worked hard their entire life and put aside money that should be theirs through deferred wages when it's time to retire, it should be given to them when it's time for their retirement.
Well, that part is true, and I agree that we have the same end game. The problem is the means of getting there. It's the unintended consequences, because companies will fold. It is the getting that in the first place, where you have $800 million unfunded liability. And federally, 7% of the pensions are federally regulated. 93 90% of the pensions in Canada are provincially regulated. We need to do more work, but we have to do it collaboratively. And I can't, at the end of the day, support something where the pensioner is going to be worse off because they're going to lose their job and their pension's going to be drastically reduced.
And with your reforms and the deal that has put forward, it has led to people losing their benefits, people taking reduced pensions, and it's hurting families in Hamilton, right here in Hamilton West-Ancaster-Dundas. And I've met those people firsthand. How can you tell them that it's a matter of the economy or about creating jobs? It's a very simple matter.
Yeah, I
It's
just
about
want to
people's
build
right.
off that point. Is especially we need to ensure corporate pension plans protect employee benefits as secured creditors in any bankruptcy proceedings. It's one thing to talk about a company that may or may not go bankrupt, but it's another to talk about a company that is going bankrupt and pays millions of dollars to their executives in that same year that they cut pensions to all of their workers. That is unacceptable.
Which is exactly why in Budget 2019 we implemented the measure.
Mr.
So
Lorenzo.
those things can be set aside. Those
I mean,
executive bonuses
we can
be
sit here
set
and
aside.
argue all night over this. The reality is there's people that have retired or are retiring that are suffering, and we have to make sure that we do something to make that protect these people that are now living really in a tight situation. I agree. My colleagues also back to your member on that bill. It is something that we have to act in a timely manner when these situations arise, because it is people's livelihoods. I get to see these people, unfortunately, when they come into the Emerge and they've hit depression, they've come to the Emerge asking for help because they know we have social workers on staff that can help them get immediate help. I cannot stand for a person that's worked their whole life to come to retirement and not be able to retire with the funds that they've contributed. It is a fundamental right that they have that money there.
I think we're all in agreement on that here, whether it takes bipartisan, tripartisanship
Right,
commitment to get this
exactly.
done, absolutely. And you both make great points, and you're both absolutely correct. I believe what Ms. Hasse is saying is that there will be no pensions to be paid if the company goes bankrupt, but I absolutely understand and empathize where you're coming from, because you are correct that nobody should be robbed of what is rightfully theirs because they put the time in
Absolutely.
and they gave an investment into their company. To be robbed of that investment in return is a crime.
Absolutely.
And it does take real leadership from the federal government to be able to solve this issue. Because as you know, my Green Party candidate mentioned, the big corporations still continue to give out the largest bonuses to the executive board while the workers suffered. And that's where it's wrong. It's not about, that's where we really need to make sure that we're drawing the line and taking that leadership at the federal level to put people first. And that's exactly what the NDP is doing.
Let me jump in here on this one. We're back to the top for Mr. Lorenzo. If you have a question, the floor is yours.
I think I'll pass. I'll let another colleague
Okay.
go.
That would go then to Mr. Riccatoni.
Thank you. I'd like to talk about something that is rarely talked about on the federal level, and it's something that has been on so many people's minds, and that is the topic of free speech. I'm sure many of you heard we had a big event at Mohawk College this past Sunday with Dave Rubin. Now, Dave Rubin is a man who is Jewish, he is openly gay, he is a conservative, and he worked for the Young Turks Network, now runs his own show. This was from an op-ed run in the Hamilton Spectator. Dave Rubin is a far-right YouTube personality and a significant part of a radicalization process ushering people into the neo-Nazi movement. This is a Jewish gay man, people, who worked for the Young Turks, a moderate classical liberal. And this is the cancer that modern progressivism is turning into. I myself was a former liberal, and I can no longer support it.
Is there we need a question if there's going to be a question.
My question is this. Now, we've had leaders from all across the board, and if I thought we would get empathy from anyone, it would be Elizabeth May, because she fought tooth and nail for years to get to the debate stage. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh fought tooth and nail to keep our candidate off the debate stage, and no other party leader stepped up to defend Maxime Bernier's right to free speech. And where I'm coming from is this. If a leader isn't willing to fight for another's right to free speech, then why should you bother listening to anything else they have to say? Because free speech is the foundation of a democracy, and you cannot build a home without a foundation. So do you think that was right, trying to go out of your way to keep our leader off the debate stage? And also,
let's start there.
Okay, let's start
Does
there.
anyone want to jump in? Was it
I don't
right?
know if you noticed, but Elizabeth May also wasn't invited to one of the debates. This is still something the Green Party faces after decades of not only being elected but being active in the community and in the country. No offense, but your new party needs to earn their spot at the table and not just...
We've done in 1 year what your party took 30 years to do.
And that's
So
why
how
I'm saying
are
you need to
and we met the
take your
criteria, so
turn.
we will be there now, but they threw everything at us, including one of the 3 criteria, which was written specifically to weed out one person, our candidate. It was so transparent what was being done. But we got over that
Absolutely.
hurdle anyway, so we will be there on October the 7th.
Absolutely, spreading hate speech is unacceptable, and I think that that's why there's a
It
big
isn't hate
difference
speech.
between
This is what the
free
progressive
speech and
left
hate
loves to
speech.
do. They keep narrowing the lines on what is considered hate speech. So you might think, I'm a progressive, and then all of a sudden, holy smokes, they moved the lines so narrowly in that I'm on the wrong side of the fence now, and I'm the racist, xenophobe, homophobe. I'm going to quote the late, great film critic Roger Ebert, who was a Pulitzer Prize winner. He said, political correctness is the fascism of our time. The very idea that we need to speak within very narrow boundaries for fear of offending somebody. And if that's what you're doing, then you're practicing ventriloquism.
So-
Nobody ever said anything
So,
hateful.
Daniel, I'd like to
Mr.
respond
Malik.
to your question, or to your assertion that, why Jagmeet Singh, believes that we need a Canada where everyone feels accepted, and why we need to make sure that people who are marginalized don't feel further marginalized by our government. At a national stage, we see what happens when we have more hate speech being propagated through media channels, through online, and through parties such as what's happening down south. I can see and appreciate what's happening in Hamilton. I've lived here my entire life. And from what I'm seeing, we are now the #1 most reported hate crime, unfortunately, in Canada. And being that title is not something that we should take with pride. It's something that we really need to work hard to resolve. And by having these conversations, and again, having the open dialogue to propagate hate speech, to propagate the fact that someone is less than another person, that's why we need to not have these conversations at the national level, and that's why I'm here fighting for people to be represented, and people from all faiths and from all communities.
And we agree 100% with that, which is why we do not look at intersectionality. I can't think of anything more racist than identity politics, because it's antithetical to Martin Luther King Jr.'s message, which was we're to judge people by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. And all intersectionality does is divide us all by color, creed, and orientation. It's driving us further apart. We should take a lesson from what we see going on south of the border. We do not want to bring that here. The People's Party of Canada sees people as individuals, objective, critical thinking, Canadian-loving individuals. A Canadian is a Canadian, whether you're an African Canadian, Chinese Canadian,
with that-
European
with that
Canadian. We do not divide people.
with
based
Everyone
on
has
race
different
or
life
orientation.
With that mindset, you need to acknowledge the fact that people have different experiences, and
Of course.
and from your perspective, you may not realize that what you're actually saying is deeply hurtful and shameful for people.
Do you realize that I
Exactly what
am an
happened-
immigrant son? Are you judging
exactly
me
what happened
based on some preconceived notions?
I'm not judging you. I'm just
Okay, I
simply
totally
stating the fact
understand
that
completely. My family immigrated to this country too. They were treated, everyone knows that one of the first to arrive in Canada were the Italians, and they were treated like rats.
And what I was,
We were here
what I was
first, is
alluding-
what I'm
if you
saying.
would let
We
me- if you would
understand.
let me
Actually,
finish.
I think
What
the
I'm-
Indigenous
what I'm
people win
alluding
that
to
one.
Is the fact that at a national level, we have a responsibility to have civilized debate and to be able to express our
Yes,
opinion.
civilized
While
debate,
at the
not
same
trying to
time making sure-
disenfranchise
I'm sorry,
voters
let's-
by
Mr. Riccatoni,
keeping us
hold on.
off the
while
debate
at the same
stage.
while at the same time making sure we respect people's diversities and the fact that they're going through hardships in life. That's why it's so important and it's so hurtful that our Prime Minister put forward what he appears to be, something that's not that big of a deal to perhaps him from coming from a state of privilege, but where there are people right here in this community who are deeply hurt by that and who feel marginalized and further victimized from what's happening.
Yes, I would like to add on,
Very quickly.
intersectionality
30
is
seconds.
extremely important, and that everyone comes from different places in life. As a woman, but also a feminist, these are things that contribute to
Of
my
course, but that always
intersectionality.
becomes your first criteria. It should be the last.
No, because I experience things on a day-to-day different than you. Did anyone ask you how old you were or what you were wearing or what you were doing that day, and how are you qualified, at what age you were? Like, it all comes from the fact that I'm a woman.
I just had Yosef here, almost assuming that I don't know what he's talking about, and having no idea that my mother was not born in this country.
Excuse me, I did not say that you didn't.
You were almost
what I
insinuating it.
mentioned
You
is
were
people have
walking
different
the line. You were
people
walking
have
the line.
different
Hello?
experiences, and from
Yes, sir.
that perspective, we need to be clear. From the debate tonight, I think there's one thing that we should really make clear as to why we're standing here and having this conversation. It's because, as the NDP, we believe in people's rights to be able to enjoy our country, to be able to contribute to our country. And that's where we're really
Have to jump in, because we are short on time.
Please.
We are going to go to, sorry to interrupt, but we are going to go to our closing statements. We're doing this in the reverse order, the reverse alphabetical order from where we started. So first up for the closing statements will be from the Liberals, Philomena Tassi.
Thanks, Scott. I just want to add to that.
By the way, 1 minute.
Yes, to that discussion, that diversity is absolutely our strength. In 2015, I felt a vocation to serve our community in federal politics to improve the lives of Hamiltonians. We have made great progress during the last 4 years. If re-elected, the Liberal government will focus on several very important things: more money for the middle-class families, lower fees for childcare, and lower cell phone bills. Real action to address climate crisis, making Canada a net zero emitter by 2050, and planting 2 billion trees. Ensuring a more secure retirement for seniors, including a 10% boost in the old age security when seniors reach the age of 75, and a 25% improvement in the Canada Pension Plan survivor benefit. If re-elected, I'll continue to work hard, leveling the playing field for all Canadians, advocating for federal investment dollars for Hamilton, and making the lives of constituents easier by providing support when they need it. I was honored to serve, and I'd be honored to serve you again. Thank you.
Mr. Riccatoni for the People's Party.
Thank you. I'll keep it brief. One thing I've learned campaigning so far is there is so much more to learn, but I promise I will give you my blood, sweat, and tears fighting for this nation. Again, I believe the only way Canada wins this time is if politics as usual loses. When it comes to your vote, do not be motivated by fear. Fear of a split vote, fear of 4 more years of Mr. Trudeau. All I ask is that you vote your heart. Vote for something, not against something. Thank you, and good night.
Mr. Malik from the NDP.
I would like to thank Cable 14 for organizing this debate and for all of you for tuning in and listening to us. And I would like to also thank my fellow candidates for being here as well. This election is about a clear choice. We see what choosing a Liberal government has meant for Hamilton: broken promises. And we know what a Conservative government looks like. That is why I'm asking you to choose differently. The NDP's platform is committed to putting people first. It's a commitment that says people matter. It's a commitment that says we deserve better. It's a commitment that says we can do better, we can be better, and we should be treated better. That is why I'm asking you to vote for me, Yousef Malik, your NDP candidate, on October 21st. Thank you.
Bert Laranjo from the Conservative Party.
I'd just like to thank everybody at home for taking the time to watch this debate with my colleagues here, and for Cable 14 and the Spectator for putting on such a great debate tonight. Two things I just want to hit on before I close. First thing is, our party is focused on making sure that Canadians get to keep more of their hard-earned money in their pockets. As an immigrant who came to this country at a young age, I saw how hard my parents worked to get us here, and it was essential for them to keep more of their money in their pockets to give us the chance that we had for the next generation. The second thing is, I'm a nurse. The thing that I do is I'm there in the emergency department when you need help. This is something that I commit to you. If you choose to make me your member of parliament, whenever you need me, I'm going to be there. I'm going to listen, I'm going to learn, I'm going to act, and I'm going to give you the compassion that you need, and we're going to find solutions to any issue together. Thank you.
And Victoria Galley from the Green Party.
Thank you. As we have seen throughout this evening, voting Green is a progress vote, not a protest vote, as we are the only party with sustainable policy on increasing the job market through our new green economy, providing Canadians the opportunity to participate in the $26 trillion green economy. We need a guaranteed livable income, lifting seniors and the marginalized community out of poverty, and making sure that one vote really does equal one say through proportional representation. Our climate emergency is not only real, but it's also the single most important issue of our time. This is the driving reason why I am running in this election as a candidate. We have to act now. You can't expect your government to change unless your vote changes. So vote Green. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much to all of the candidates today for their participation. And I want to mention, and we're going to put it up on the screen here, I would like everybody, when you get an opportunity, not just to have watched this, but to go to the websites, to go and look up what the candidates stand for, do a little digging. And there are more than just these candidates. Go look up Victoria Galley, Bert Laranjo, Yousef Malik, Daniel Riccatoni, Philomena Tassi, and Spencer Roque from the Rhinoceros Party, if you wish to do that as well. If you were listening today, and if there was a lot of stuff, there was a lot of information that was flying by, there was a lot of things that were said, if you are thinking, I missed some of that, I'd like to hear that again. Cable14now.com, thespec.com, the debates will be replayed for the next number of weeks up until the election. Look on your local listings. You will be able to see this again. You'll be able to review if this is your riding and you didn't quite catch something, or you want to review something to have a good idea of what it was that the candidates that you're looking at, that you're considering said. That's where you can find the information. Thank you for tuning in.